the history and legacy of Victorian Gothic interior design. Victorian Gothic interior design is more than a decorative style. It is a visual expression of an era marked by rapid industrialization, religious nostalgia, romantic imagination, and an emerging fascination with the medieval past. With its moody elegance, ornate detailing, and reverence for craftsmanship, this style captivated the Victorian public and left an indelible mark on the architectural and design landscape of the 19th century. To truly understand and appreciate Victorian Gothic interiors, one must explore the historical context, the philosophical underpinnings, and the stylistic evolution of the movement. This article delves into the rich origins of Victorian Gothic design, its cultural significance, and its lasting legacy in today's homes and design trends. The roots of the Gothic Revival Victorian Gothic design is part of a broader artistic and architectural movement known as the Gothic Revival, which gained momentum in Britain during the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Inspired by the pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and soaring spires of medieval cathedrals and castles, this revival sought to rekindle the spiritual and moral values associated with the Middle Ages. While the original Gothic style emerged during the 12th century in France and spread across Europe, the revival was distinctly Victorian in its purpose. It was not merely about imitating historical architecture, it was about invoking a romanticized past as a reaction to the anxieties of modern industrial life. Prominent figures such as Augustus Pugin, a devout Catholic architect, and John Ruskin, an influential art critic and theorist, championed the Gothic revival as a return to moral clarity and artistic integrity. Pugin famously declared that decorative beauty should arise from construction, encouraging authenticity in design. For him, the Gothic style symbolized Christian virtue, honesty in materials, and the dignity of craftsmanship. The Victorian era, an age of contradictions. The Victorian era, 1837–1901, was a period of tremendous growth and contrast. Britain was at the height of its imperial power. Technological innovation was reshaping everyday life, and the middle class was expanding rapidly. Yet with progress came unease over the loss of tradition, the impact of industry on the natural world, and the growing disparity between wealth and poverty. In this context, Gothic Revival design offered a sense of stability, mystery, and spiritual depth. While Neoclassicism and Modernism celebrated rationality and restraint, Victorian Gothic embraced emotion, drama, and symbolism. Interior design reflected this duality. The wealthy filled their homes with handcrafted furnishings, stained glass, religious iconography, and architectural detailing. Even middle-class families, eager to express refinement and moral respectability, adopted elements of the Gothic aesthetic through affordable reproductions, wallpapers, and furniture. Defining characteristics of Victorian Gothic interiors. The design vocabulary of Victorian Gothic interiors was elaborate, symbolic, and rooted in both medieval inspiration and Victorian values. Common elements included architectural detail, pointed arches in windows, doorways, and niches, ornate wood paneling, especially in libraries and dining rooms, vaulted or coffered ceilings with intricate molding stone, or brick fireplaces often crowned, with carved mantels too. Rich materials, dark woods such as oak, mahogany, and walnut velvet, brocade, and damask fabrics for curtains, and upholstery stained and leaded glass windows featuring religious or botanical motifs, gilded and brass detailing in chandeliers, candelabras, and picture frames. The color palette deep, moody hues, burgundy, forest green, navy blue, and charcoal accents of gold, antique bronze, and ivory layered textures that added visual and tactile richness. Furniture and decoration Gothic Revival chairs with high backs, lancet arches, and carved tracery canopied beds and elaborate armoires, religious iconography, heraldic symbols, and medieval-inspired tapestries. Decorative motifs such as quatrefoils, trefoils, gargoyles, and fleur-de-lis influences on Victorian. Gothic interiors, Victorian. Gothic interior design was shaped by a combination of intellectual, artistic, and technological influences. Religious and moral philosophy. Many Victorian designers saw the Gothic style as a return to Christian virtue and spiritual authenticity. The architecture of churches and cathedrals inspired domestic interiors that felt reverent, contemplative, and dignified. Romanticism. The broader Romantic movement in literature, art, and philosophy encouraged a fascination with nature, emotion, death, and the supernatural. These themes found expression in the Gothic revival through dim lighting, mysterious alcoves, dramatic contrasts, and motifs like ravens, ivy, and ruins. Technological advancement. Ironically, industrial innovation helped spread the Gothic style. Mass production made previously expensive materials and designs accessible to the growing middle class. Companies produced embossed wallpapers, machine-carved furniture, and stained glass panels that mimicked handcrafted originals. Colonial expansion. As Britain expanded its empire, it also brought home eclectic influences from across the globe. Though Victorian Gothic remained rooted in European medievalism, it was often layered with exotic details from India, the Middle East, and Asia, resulting in richly eclectic interiors. The decline and resurgence. By the early 20th century, the ornate excesses of the Victorian Gothic style fell out of favor. Movements like Art Nouveau, Art Deco, and later modernism emphasized simplicity, abstraction, and the elimination of historical references. Gothic revival architecture became associated with institutions, churches, universities, and government buildings, rather than private homes. For much of the 20th century, the style was considered outdated or overly theatrical in domestic design. However, starting in the late 20th century and continuing into the 21st, there has been a renewed interest in Victorian Gothic interiors, fueled by nostalgia, the rise of vintage aesthetics, and a cultural fascination with dark romanticism. TV shows, films, and literature, like Penny Dreadful, Crimson Peak, or The Addams Family, have also reignited public interest in Gothic motifs. Today, designers and homeowners are finding new ways to reinterpret this rich style in contemporary settings. Victorian Gothic. Today, a living legacy, contemporary Victorian Gothic interiors are not replicas of the past. They are inspired evolutions. Designers often blend Gothic revival elements with modern minimalism, creating spaces that are both dramatic and livable. Modern takes on Victorian Gothic include painting walls in matte black or deep navy, while keeping furnishings sleek using Gothic-inspired lighting over minimalist tables, incorporating antique or reproduction furniture as statement pieces.